based on the fitness that you have a specific allotment of energy for that day to raise you to the level that you want to perform and express the fitness that you have. And if you overexert the energy you have on the swim, you are now going to be behind on the bike, and you're going to draw from what is already what we'll call a reservoir, an energy reservoir bank, and you're going to draw and draw and draw until about mile 4 or 5 of the run. And then what you're going to do? You're going to overdraw.
There we go. How's it going, Coach?
Happy Monday. Buddy, it's good, man. It's December. Yeah, this weekend I was outside in shorts for a little bit. It was like high 50s, low 60s here in Chattanooga. Things are good. Welcome, Crushing Iron Podcast, 329.
I don't know, man. I'm showing 328 over here.
I think you're right. I think it's 328. I was trying to overshoot a little bit, but hey, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It is 328. Welcome aboard. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, we do cover all things triathlon, but we also sprinkle in a lot of life and how our lives and how we try to balance training and life together, how they hopefully complement each other, but oftentimes intersect, causing imbalances in our training and our personal lives. And we just try to do our best to share, both Mike and I, our experiences, both the good and the bad, and try to be as real as we can in a kind of a conversational style format with open dialogue, no structure, no sponsors, more of like a conscious thought stream for both he and I. We share a lot of our personal experiences, but then also our athletes that we work with, and then oftentimes some of the feedback and comments and posts we get from our closed group, which is on Facebook. You can search Crushing Iron Group and check that out. But hey, we appreciate you tuning in. We open up soft, we finish strong, we negative split like you should the run or any kind of race. So tune in, sit back, relax, give us about 5 minutes, and then we'll be ready to rock.
Yeah, your bi-weekly conversation, because let's face it, triathlon's a sport that gets a little lonely. We can get isolated in this sport, so we're here every day or twice a week as your buddies.
We are your buds.
Talking your language, triathlon.
Yeah, twice a week for about 2 hours. So yeah, about one full work day a month, we're here for you. About 8 hours. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but let's be honest. Most of you don't work 8-hour days anymore. You work like 3 hours and spend like 5 hours on Facebook, and then call it a day and go home. Let's just be honest. I mean, that's just, especially this time of year, like there is nobody working right now. I mean, pretty much when Thanksgiving starts, it's all, dude, let's just shut down. I think we're not going to do anything until January 2nd. That's kind of how it is. Like I pulled into the parking garage today to head to the office, and usually if I get here at like 7, then I'm on like the 4th or 5th floor. And today I rolled in and I was on I could have parked on the 2nd, and I just pulled up to the 3rd and hopped on the elevator. But yeah, people are shutting down. And hey, it's not a bad time of year to re-energize. You don't want to get lazy. You don't want to become complacent, because again, the more steps you take backwards is going to make for the longer journey forwards. But it's about balancing things. It's about doing things the right way. It's about having a plan, making the right plan, and then setting yourself up for success going forward. I got a couple, I feel, solid topics for today, but wanted to get your immediate feedback. Is I know you're a Wisconsin Badger fan, diehard, and we have a lot of Badger fans that listen to this podcast.
Yes, we do.
We shared a little bit of a back and forth on Sunday about the game, because I went to bed and you guys were up 21-7, and I thought, hey, this could be it. More reality. I mean, I kind of knew it with that touch, but hey, we both drew a couple parallels to from that game into life and triathlon. And what were some of your takeaways?
Well, that's exactly it. I think overall Badger fans are probably pretty optimistic, because we frankly probably played arguably the most talented team in the country the best twice. Even though we got routed last time, we were in the game until the third quarter. And then I think the honest part of this is that they're just more talented. And as we were texting about the other day, and this is a super parallel to triathlon, I believe, that if you look at the whole game as a full race, we came out too hot, we came out too excited, and Ohio State negative split the game. And they just paced it well. They got behind, but they didn't panic, and they just saved it till the end. And they came out and steamrolled us in the second half. And I think that applies to triathlon racing so well. And what I kept thinking about was, this is honest to God truth I had in that first half was, and you see it all the time with these sort of upstart teams or these kind of underdogs that are fired up in the beginning of the game. They start getting first downs and they're jumping around and all fired up and whatever. And the first thought that came to my mind is like when I get overly excited about something or anxious or nervous or whatever, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but like if you had to go public speak or whatever it is, do you ever get like dehydrated and have this weird feeling in your body like your adrenals or adrenals are flying too hard? I think that's what might have been what happened. And then you get in the go and sit in the locker room for like an hour because of these stupid halftime shows now. And I think they just were a totally different physical specimen in the second half.
I kind of text this back to you yesterday, it reminds me a lot of triathlon, and especially what it reminds me of is how people are so negatively impacted by the swim. And their total disregard for swim preparation, because I don't know why people not why everyone, but a lot of triathletes, that's like their mantra. It's like, I don't have to swim a lot because it's only a short portion of the race. And if it was that simple, then you might see some benefit from that. But the truth is that everything in life is about managing energy. Everything, whether it's your personal life, your professional life, as you walk into the office, let's say you've got 2 meetings on the front end of the day and then 2 meetings in the back end of the day. If you put all of your energy and all of your effort and all of your mindset into those first 2 meetings, then you're going to have nothing left for the last 2. And if you're being judged on all 4, well, then your first 2 might be great, but then guess what? The impression that most people are left with is the last one. And so if you totally bomb those last 2 meetings, guess what? No one's going to remember the meetings you had at 8 and 9 a.m. in the morning that you nailed. They're going to remember the ones at 3 and 4 that you absolutely bonked on. And the same thing goes for triathlon. Based on the fitness that you have a specific allotment of energy for that day to raise you to the level that you want to perform and express the fitness that you have. And if you overexert the energy you have on the swim, you are now going to be behind on the bike, and you're going to draw from what is already what we'll call a reservoir, an energy reservoir bank, and you're going to draw and draw and draw until about mile 4 or 5 of the run. And then what you're going to do? You're going to overdraw. And you're going to keep digging into that reservoir that you burnt on the swim because you didn't prepare well. All you did was get in the pool and swim 2,000 yards as slow as you could for time, 3 days a week, and expect to get better, or maybe once. And you're going to wonder why at mile 4 or 5 of the run, you can't keep it together. And what are you going to do? You're going to blame the run. You know what, man, I got to run more. It's my run's failing me. My run's failing me. You know what I got to do for sure? I got to run off the bike. I just got to run off the bike. I got to do more bricks because, as you know, your run form in running is scientifically different running off the bike. It's not even the same sport. There's running off the bike and then there's running. No, again, false. But that is what most people are going to do and how they're going. But it's all about negative splitting everything you do, your day, how you prepare, racing, training. Again, it's like everything is connected, and the more you try to split things up, and like you said, Wisconsin is like coming out strong. But it's also about confidence. And you see, and this, I don't think this is Wisconsin because I don't kind of take them for that kind of team, but you see a lot of teams and a lot of athletes as well in all kinds of sports come out really, really, really hot when they don't feel like they have something to lose, or B, they don't know that they really have a chance. They come out with this like false bravado and false energy, like they're pumped, like they really think they can have it going on. They can do things and they can get amped. And the other team is like, yeah, all right, we might be down right now, but we're definitely not out. And what matters is not the first quarter, but who's winning in the fourth. and they just kind of stay their course, and they stay calm, and they stay patient, and they execute their plan because they're not worried about how the plan is coming into play in the first quarter. They're worried about what they feel like it's going to look like later on in the game or later on in your race. And great examples of that are swim training and making sure that you're prepared in the swim, and then also pacing on the bike. Like that's where I wanted to go today in terms of our about just sticking to a plan and having a plan is that, because I had a couple athletes racing yesterday out at Indian Wells in California. And so, yeah, well, I'll let you continue on, but that's where I wanted to go with that in terms of planning on the bike, executing, and allowing yourself to, even though your ego says, I want to go faster and harder, understanding the bigger picture and how things might play out given a location, given a race, given your fitness, and then having the trust to stick by that and to see what happens. And so I'll go into that in a minute, but wanted to give you the floor in case you had anything to add about your Wisconsin Badger Ohio State game.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to add, and this is a little bit different than just racing as an individual. I just think that I realize that Ohio State is just they have, like, I don't know whether it's talking about 15 people are going to get drafted in the NFL or whatever on their team, and they're just so deep that that is a deeper reservoir of energy. We just don't have the second and third lines to bring in to match up with their second and third lines, and then the whole thing that's what I think started crumbling. And we ran that first half. We had a really good game plan in the sense of we were doing a lot of movement and kind of trying to keep them off balance and all these kind of things, and kind of playing a little bit out of ourselves, because we knew that was probably the best shot we had. But in the second half, I think once that locomotive started with Ohio State, you could just see it kind of shifting. I mean, they are literally like one of the only football teams. I mean, they're like one of those football teams that can like score touchdowns in fast breaks. It's not like a basketball analogy. I mean, they just scored, and you don't even realize it. Next thing you know, they're scoring again. But we had, and I'm not blaming it on this, but we lost a couple of key players on defense in the first half, and we just don't have the arsenal to replace guys like that. And then I think it just caught up with us, and I think at the end, honestly, the second half at some point, we sort of shifted gears and kind of went into maintenance mode to sort of hold on to the Rose Bowl, to be honest, because I just don't think we could risk getting blown out at that point with some trickery,
Yeah, I mean, depth in games like that always kind of reminds me of, if you have an athlete that's going to race, a 70.3 or something like that, and they're competing against, it's like a team with no depth is the individual, and the team with lots of depth is running a relay. Like you can have a fresh person for every discipline, and that's often what at times what it looks like when a team has depth over another one. It's about being fresh, and it's about maximizing energy and giving rest where there needs to be rest. And if you don't have it, it's a great analogy and to take forward with endurance sports. It's all about energy and stress and rest management and how you use it and how you can use it. Obviously, in team sports, you have the team to fall back on, but in endurance sports, you have yourself. And it's all in training and how you structure a plan and even how you structure a race. And how you want to execute that plan is all about rest, stress, and the energy management, and how they're going to complement or take away from each other. So when it matters most, you can express the best fitness that you have at a place. Usually for triathlon, it's always going to be the run and doing it your best. And that was kind of what I was going at today. Is I had an athlete that I work with that did this, like I said, did Indian Wells this last weekend, and we're kind of going back and forth. Texting on Thursday or Friday, and he's a huge data guy. I mean, he loves his data, loves his pre-built workouts, loves seeing exactly what he's doing every single day, every single session. So he emails me, or he shoots me a text. He's like, "All right, man, what are you thinking for watts?" He trains with power. What are you thinking for watts on racing? I said, and I kind of winced as soon as I hit send. I said, I'm actually thinking 235 average power and around 245 normalized power. So that's a very small difference. And in a flat race like Indian Wells, like you really want really want a VI, which is variability index. You really want your average power and your normalized power to be very, very close. You have no excuses for like huge surges. So you like to keep it within 10, really no matter what the race course is, because that's how you're gonna have your best run. And so I hit send and I said 235 average power, 245 normalized power. And I kind of waited for a minute because I think about 3 months beforehand, or maybe 3.5 months before, he did another 70.3, and we had his power significantly higher. And so I think every athlete that trains, like, I've kept training, I'm doing well. Your first thought is, if I raced at 250 watts in July, then when I race again in December, then my watts are going to be what? They're going to be higher. Mm-hmm. They have to be. You're like, yeah. I'm going to be in better shape. I have to be higher. And so the range that I gave him was 20 watts lower.
20.
20.
Talk about an ego strike, dude.
I know, especially the guys, right? Because guys are like, dude, you got to give me, like, I'm just going to crush this. And I was looking back through his training and his bike workouts, and then I was looking, because again, you also can't, it's not really an apples to apples comparison on courses. It's apples to oranges. They're pretty much the same, but every course is different, and that allows you to do different things, like hilly courses with flat runs or flat bikes with hilly runs, and how the swim is. And I had a feeling that given, because his bike had gotten a little bit better, but his run had improved, in my opinion, significantly, and his swimming had improved a ton. And I think one of the things that, again, going back to kind of our original conversation, that I don't think people estimate is, or that they do underestimate rather, is how your swim improved fitness affects your overall energy over the course of the day. So I knew his swimming had improved. I knew his bike had gotten a little bit better, and I knew his run had gotten a lot better. But what I kind of thought had happened, and this is where coaches can take some of the hits. I thought I was a little bit too aggressive on the bike power targets for his race earlier in the year with going 20 watts higher. It was also a hillier course, so the demands are a little bit higher. But I gave him that range, and he, for that race back, I think it was July or August, he did 254 average power, 264 normalized power for a 248 bike split. Now he had a 37-minute swim split, but he had a 210 half marathon. And I wasn't disappointed in that, but I knew, given this race, that I feel like it was going to suit his abilities the best. Because if you look at the total race and how much energy and fitness you have to express that day, if you can take a guy who did a 37-minute swim, and they're faster, and they're more efficient, so they're going to come out of the water I gathered maybe 2 to 4 minutes faster, but also not just being faster, but also fresher. And so if you take away 4 minutes on the swim, and then that same person is also fresher getting out, the amount of energy you're saving is tremendous. And so when I gave him this, he was like, "Hey, that's actually a lot lower than what you gave me like a few months ago. I was expecting to be higher." And what I just told him, and again, like this, as much as coaches can feel like they can set athletes up for success on race day is all the athlete. They get all the accolades. They are the one that do the work, and they're the one that go out and either execute a plan or put forth the effort and do the best they can on any given day. And I told him, I said, I think you're capable of a really great run. And asking an athlete who's trained hard, who's been consistent, who's wanted to get better from his previous anything, asking an athlete to go 20 watts lower and expect a better result is it almost sounds kind of asinine. It's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But again, like we've talked about this before, especially in long course racing, like if you want to, gaining 10 minutes on the bike might lose you 25 on the run for a net gain of 15. Then how do you want to think about 70.3 racing? So I did. I said, all right, we're going to do this. This is our plan. And he's so much a stickler for adherence that I knew he was going to stick with it. So you're kind of just, once you're in, you're a coach, again, like that's when you hand out race plans, it's kind of like, all right, especially if they're going to stick to it, you're like, all right, well, here we go. And then you kind of sit back and you're like, you're always pretty sure you have it correct, but you never really know how they're going to show up on race day. And the results were awesome, and the total kudos goes to him. He dropped from a 37-minute swim to a 34-minute swim. The biggest thing was he went from a 248 bike split with a 254 average power and a 264 normalized power. Yes, this course was flatter, and we knew that. He went down to a 233 bike split with only 237 power and 246 normalized power. But the big winner of the day was that he went from a 210 half marathon to a 152.
Wow.
He gained 18 minutes on his half marathon. He went down from a 9:55 pace to an 8:36 pace. And yes, was that from increased run fitness? Absolutely. But it was the allowance of giving him an opportunity, or us an opportunity, to express that. Because if you dig yourself a hole in the swim, and then you dig even harder with the lower energy reserve and going into more fatigue on the bike, then your run means nothing. It means nothing. So you come into contact all the time, and you see people who are really great, who have a great open marathon or open half marathon or 5K, and they're really, really fast, and they jump into the sport, and they expect it to all be the same. And it's not. It's a puzzle. And you have to give and take away, and plug in and take out, and see what complements and what takes away. And I just thought it was a great opportunity for him to kind of showcase the run. I think I'm fairly confident that's his half marathon PR, like over even open half marathon. And again, I think it's a lesson, I think, for everyone in a couple ways. It's a lesson on patience. It's also a huge lesson on trust. In going into a race and expecting one thing, but then feeling confident that if you did it a little bit differently and you went lower, that it's all about how you can perform on the day, not perform on a discipline, but perform on a day. And that's how you want to empty the tank. Okay, if you're running out of gas, you want to run out of gas in the parking lot. You don't want to run out of gas 2 miles away and be stranded and be stuck and have to push your car to the parking lot. You want to empty it out in the parking lot or in your driveway. And so many athletes burn their fuel and burn their gas in the swim and then on the bike, and then always blame it on the last little bit, which is to run. So I think there's a million different directions you can go with that. But and again, gigantic kudos to this athlete for actually trusting the plan and sticking to it, because remember I said 235 average power, 245 normalized, and he went 237, 246. I mean, you can't really do it that much better. And he ran well, and he deserves all the credit for that. And so I think lots of takeaways from that. I'll let you kind of piece that together for what kind of stuck out from you. But I just thought there was a lot of really great takeaways, both in training and in prep racing and sticking to a plan when it comes to race day.
That's a great story, dude. The one thing, when you're started with the swim and how people tend to overlook it and all that sort of thing, and then of course we all talk about cooking the bike and how our legs can't handle it, and that's why I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say that for the most part, certainly a majority of people get to the run and can't execute what they had hoped for before that race, and maybe most long distance races for sure. Is that probably accurate? Like at least half.
Oh, for sure.
But here's what I thought, man. It's like when you're saying that about the swim and how we come out of it with a lower energy reserve than we even tried to think about. So like what I think about the run and my failings, and I always would, of course, like look back immediately and try to blame it on the bike and everything like that. But when I think about my runs, I mean, yeah, my legs hurt and all that, but for the feeling overall is more a body fatigue. It's just your body is not there. It doesn't have the mental abilities to, get through what's going on. I mean, you tough it out, you know what I'm saying? But like, I question whether or not it's quote unquote your legs are totally fried a lot of times. I think it's everything. I think it starts with the swim and in that regard in a lot of ways. And then the other thought I had was if you give a target an FT or a average watt target that's 20 lower, think about what that and they accept it all the way through and not force, like this sucks. Why am I doing this? If they just accept that, how much more relaxed you'll be through that bike ride. I mean, there's something to be said, I think, for the mental pressures of trying to hit a watt target that is probably higher than you should be trying to hit it. So you're not only going harder with your legs in general and pushing too hard, but mentally you're like, every time you're not there and you got to struggle to push through. You only have so many kind of push throughs you can do on a day like a race. I mean, and if you're constantly doing that on the bike just to stick up and hold with it, that's got to be a huge drain on your overall frame.
The weight of expectation and the energy you put in to meet it, whether it's something that's going to result in a great day or just a great moment, is significant. And the way that the biggest thing is that, if I'm being honest, most triathletes don't have a power meter. They have a very expensive bike computer.
Yeah.
Most athletes have absolutely no idea how to use their power for good. It sounds like a Star Wars thing. But it's true. Most triathletes have literally no idea how to use their power for training in an appropriate way, and they don't have anywhere close to an idea of how to take the numbers that they've accumulated, take the workouts that they've done, and then apply it to race day. Because the truth is that most people, and this is what I try to explain to people when I first start working with them, and I may give them a race plan. I'm like, oh, well, dude, that sounds lower, and I'm like, yeah, it is lower because your last 4 or 5 rides have been this, and this. But what you didn't do beforehand was swim hard to your potential for, let's say, if we're doing a half Ironman, like 28 to 40 minutes, gone through transition, hopped on a bike, and then expected to race that bike, and then, that's right, and then run your best half marathon. So when people train and they get their FTP, and this is another gigantic mistake that athletes make. I mean, they make it all the time, is they take their FTP and they make it gold. They make it the end all be all of all their training. And so what they'll do is, all right, well, my FTP is 250. So most people tell me that you can race at around 0.80 IF, which is intensity factor, which is just a 80% percentage of your FTP. So that would give you, from 250, that would give you a 200. Well, the truth is that, let's say you're an athlete who's really, really good at short course and really, really good at short-term power, but is just really poor at muscular endurance or long-distance duration riding, and all you've proven on race day, or not race day, excuse me, but all you've proven in your training on your long rides and intervals is that the best you can probably do is like 185. Because again, you're an athlete that does well with 1, 4, 8, maybe max 15-minute bursts of energy or bursts of effort, including your 20-minute FTP. But when it comes to doing things for 60 minutes, 120 minutes, 180 minutes, you fatigue quicker. But you're not going to go by that. You're going to look at your numbers because again, we don't like to look in the mirror and think and see, this is what we have shown we can do. Show yourself the work, and then say, you know what, and just accept the fact that that's who you are. Don't just take your number of 200 and go for it. So let's say 185 is the best this athlete has proven themselves they can do. Well, on race day, what are they going to do? They're going to do 200. And then they go off the bike, and the first thing they're doing, they have a crappy run, is blame the fact that their run is poor. When they overshot the bike just going for a specific number or a specific percentage without showing themselves what they can do. But again, it's the truth. Most triathletes don't have a power meter, and they just have a very expensive bike computer. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to, again, when people ask me, like, what is one of the biggest benefits of having a power meter? It is 100% about the run. Yes, will it make you a better cyclist? Absolutely. But the biggest gain you're going to see is the ability to pace yourself. Because again, watts, yes, is what you can do and the power you can create in an instant. But what it also does is it shows you how many kilojoules, or which is your caloric energy expenditure as well, how much energy you're able to sustain at whatever heart rate it is, and how much power you're putting out to leave again, because this isn't just swimming and cycling and running. This is a sport. It is all together. It's how you can do them in succession, not separately. And then how to give yourself the right target on the bike to allow yourself the best run possible. And again, there's also significant variables that have to come into that. Is it like if there are races on a certain time of year they're going to be really, really, really hot, I'll wait till like 48 hours beforehand to give an athlete a number, because I want to see if it's going to be really, 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 really hot. Because that, again, will adjust things. I'll go lower because I want you to be, because you might be churning out 200 watts, but the energy you're putting out to maintain 200 watts, like take Chattanooga, for instance, this last year. I gave people watts that were significantly lower than what they were expecting because, again, 200 watts on a cool day might have gotten you, let's say 3,500 kilojoules, which is give or take 350, what around most people are on an Ironman, would have taken out X amount of energy with their heart rate being pretty normal. But on a day where it's going to be significantly hotter, right? So you're thinking like 95 to 100 degrees with high humidity and high dew point, holding that same 200 is night and day. You're going to be burning so many calories, and then the other biggest thing is your heart rate's going to be significantly higher. Again, if we say it's about energy, we also have to say it's about beats per minute. And the more you can save for those to spend when it matters is what you're supposed to do. So again, like, it's great to have a power meter, it's great to train on these things, but if you don't have any idea how to take the information and apply it and use it, then you're not doing any good. It's like a person who can make a ton of money but has no idea what to do with it. So just spend it frivolously and don't invest and don't plan. That's what a lot of athletes do with their power meters. But again, it just goes back to understanding and having a plan and then sticking to it, because the worst plan you can have is the one that you're given and then not sticking to it, because now you learn nothing. You learn zero. You just learn that the only thing you learned is you still have very, very little to no ability to show restraint and execute a plan. You didn't learn so much about your fitness. You learned about your shortcomings, because usually that plan doesn't go the way you want it to. But again, it's about trust, but it's about acknowledging and knowing who you are and what you can really do with long rides that you've seen, what they've shown to produce, not what you hope you can do. Because as you kind of said at the beginning of this little conversation, was that the amount of energy people and athletes are going to go to meet an expectation, they will drive themselves into the ground to meet a watt target, even though it might be 25 over, just because what they think once they plug it into best bike split was that they can hit 23 miles an hour. And if they're not at 23, even if the course is hillier, the temperature is hotter, or there's a headwind the whole way back, they're going to be obsessed with 23 miles an hour. And that's why I love power so much, is that it just the speed just is what it is. As long as you stick to your power, you're going to stick to your energy reserve and start to spend that intelligently instead of wasting it every 30 minutes.
Yeah. So I don't use a power meter, but I definitely do that. I have my targets. I ignore what I think is energy, or my energy reserves. I know I ignore that. And as you're talking, man, it makes me think. It's like, this whole idea of reverse engineering things and seeing what something is and going backwards. It's almost like, until you actually nail a run to the best of your abilities and what you think you can do, you should be pulling back on the bike and swim. I mean, it's pretty much that simple, isn't it? If you think about it, it's like, until you've done that, you haven't really, then you can start saying, all right, maybe I could have given just a hair. But how many people can actually say that I underbiked? It's got to be so rare.
No one.
Yeah.
No one. No one says they underbike.
Until you can run that race, you haven't figured it out. So now why not try and run it and then go backwards? That makes it's a great point, but it also brings up like what I would consider the next false positive. There's three false positives in triathlon. The first one is trying to apply your average 100-yard swim to your race swim. No, it doesn't work like that.
especially if you have a swim stroke that is geared towards moving your arms very, very slowly and almost politely, and then expecting that swim fitness is going to, and that swim stroke is going to translate to really, really good open water times. It's not. So if you're sitting there and you're asking yourself why I can swim 140s in the pool, but I swim 210s in open water, we call that a false positive. That's the fact that your swim stroke or your swim fitness is totally different in the pool than it is the open water. And you're also probably a person who pushes off the wall like they're a freaking NASA spaceship. And then they wonder why they immediately drop 15 seconds per 100 when they get in open water when they don't have the access to the wall anymore. The next false positive, the one we just talked about. The basing their percentage of their watts on their best ride of the year. Oh, my best ride of the year was I averaged 250 for 3 hours, so I know I can do 250 on race day. Really? Well, the first question you have to ask is, what were the days like preceding that workout? And then what were the days like after that? Did you recover well? How did things go? Was your load high? Did you enter fatigue? And oh yeah, did you swim a hard, 1.2 or 2.4 before that? And then did you run your best fitness half marathon after that? I didn't think so. But all in all, great training day. The third, and what is oftentimes like the most brutal and humbling false positive in triathlon, is your run. Oh, dude, my best, because here's where things flip, and this is what I have to really get athletes to buy into when I start working with them, is that a lot of athletes go from running 2, max 3 times a week, and then again wonder why they can't run well in triathlon at the end of the day, and they'll go out and they'll run hard, their best hard long run on a Sunday, and it was their second run of the week, and they averaged 8-minute pace, and the days before that and the days after that they basically did nothing because they shelled themselves. That's not really anything you take into account when you're structuring a plan and trying to see what you don't just take your PRs in training, because if you can do things correctly, you want your best split of the day to be your run, everything else to be kind of like a training day. But the point of training is to get so your swim and your bike you're in such good shape and you've gotten so fit that what used to feel like an 8 or 9 on a scale of 1 to 10 exertion of 220 watts is now at 240 watts, but you're at a 5. So you're producing higher power with less effort and less energy. And I'm still running, and I'm running 4 or 5, a lot of times 6 days a week. So my runs aren't going to be the ones to write home about. But the reason I can run well off the bike isn't because I did 3 20-minute brick runs, and brick running is a whole different sport, because it's not. It's because I've gotten myself to where my run is so durable, my body is so resilient that even after swimming and cycling 1.2 miles and cycling 56 miles, and I can now run my best half marathon because it's only 13 miles and I've been averaging 30, 35, maybe even 40 miles a week. Not because I went and ran a mile and a half off the bike twice and had a long run of 14 once. That's not going to cut it. And again, that's where people again whip out their tri calculator and input all these false positives, and then of course what do they get? The final false positive, which is your estimated race time, and then you wonder why you absolutely fall apart. And that's not even that's not even taking into account how fueling and nutrition plays in that. It's and again, but I'm not telling you that because I'm telling you that it's easy. A lot of it's just about paying attention and being realistic and objective, and knowing who you are and when, and not trying to race with another person's body, which is your expectation. It's that it's hard. It's hard to look at all you've done and be objective about it and not wish you were here or wish you were there. I don't know how I'm going to be. And it goes a lot back to teaching people to race and run by feel, is that it's a skill. It's a skill you need to learn. You want to be on top of your training, not buried underneath it. Mm. And that's what happens in racing, is people bury themselves under these horrible expectations and these horrific race plans that you were doomed from the start. Before you put your goggles on that morning, you were doomed with a terrible plan that was going to set you up for failure. And the worst part about it is that you're not going to have any. It might be a bad race, but the truth is that you likely won't even know how good of a race you could have had. Had you maybe done things a little bit differently or formulated a plan that was a little more realistic so you could execute your best? And also, don't get me wrong, you're never going to always formulate the best plan, because, and I'll even tell this with athletes, like on like a race week email, something like, listen, even though I'm saying this, you are the ultimate, trump card. Yeah, you're the decider. You are the person who can dictate if this is good or bad. But you don't get to take the driver's seat until mile 30 of the bike or mile 80 for a full. Because until then, even if I'm wrong, even if I'm so wrong, you're still going to have so much more energy to come back and finish the bike harder. But I don't want you to make a decision when you're super fresh. I want to make a decision when you are feeling, really, really good at mile, 30 or 40 of a 70.3 or mile 80 of the bike, and then start to make decisions. But again, it's about listening to yourself too, but also, maybe having a plan A, a plan B, a plan C.
Sure.
Sure, that's it.
I know. I just try to think about how easy it is to go into something like TriCalc and the false positives. And really, how many of us can go in there? And I try to do this sometimes. I'll be in there and I'll really, really dig deep for my truth. You know what I mean? Like, what is the truth here? I know what I can swim in a pool. I know I can, when I'm cooking and I feel really good and blah, 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 I can do X. But when you get in open water, you're not swimming straight. Let's face that. So you're probably swimming to every 25 meters. You might be swimming 27, 26. Not a big deal, but over the course of a race, you're going a lot further. And secondly, if you stop because you got water, you swallowed water a couple times. All of a sudden, the reality of that, so I always think about it in terms of, like, what do I know that I can do? What do I know that I can do? And I try to do that on the bike and the run too, but sometimes I get close. This year at Chattanooga, I think I had probably my best race in certainly a long time. And what I keep going back to was two things. Is throughout that bike, this is the half now, I would get in a place. I'm like, man, I feel pretty good here through mile 30 or whatever. I kept holding back. I don't have a power meter, so I'm doing this by feel. And then when I knew I was in good shape is when I got on that last road and there's like 10 miles left, and I felt really pretty solid, coming in. It's a flat, finish for the last 10 miles, whatever it is. And I was like, okay, just keep it right here. Don't like burn it right now. Just stay here because you feel pretty good. And then on the run, I got through that first loop and I didn't overexert, and I felt like we were talking about once that I had control of my energy, and I wasn't like, eating every goo in sight, and I wasn't, stuff like that. So I know that all started on the bike, and of course the swim was shortened too, so that probably inadvertently helped me. And yeah, man, it's like, because you can go out, and I do it all the time, man. I'm like, man, I did run that, and I rode yesterday pretty hard, so maybe this is that. But I think it just comes down to staying within yourself, and like, whenever you, what's that saying, man? Whenever you think you're going the right speed, back it off, or whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. What I always say is, if you think you're going too fast, you're going way too fast. If you think you're going just about right, you're still going too fast. If you think you're going too slow, you're going just about right. And like that, just that overall feeling alone of knowing yourself and knowing your effort, again, because like when I say I give you can make a plan, but the athlete still has the reins. They can say push forward, or they can say pull back. But it's about giving them the opportunity to be in a place where they're understanding their efforts, so they can make good cognitive decisions on what's going to set themselves up for success. Because I've had athletes before who have gone through like mile 75, 80 and been like, I felt great, so I pushed it, and then still had a great run. And I've also had athletes that have been like, I thought I could hold it, but at mile 20, I knew that my legs just weren't there yet. And so I pulled back. And they ended up having spectacular runs. And just having that ability to trust yourself in that moment, but also understanding, it's like reading about somebody versus having coffee with them for 3 hours. You think you see it and you're like, I know what they're all about. And then you sit down and talk with them and you're like, totally different. And I can totally see things. Now I understand better why they think this way or they feel this way or who they are. If you don't do your training and a lot of your training on feel, then you're never going to really truly have a great understanding of who you are. You're going to just look at numbers and then by association feel like that should dictate how your race goes. And then you're absolutely terrified when that plan has to change. And so being able to listen to your body and understand things, like I read a great quote from, I think it was like a Norwegian cross-country skier over the weekend, like one of the greatest ever. And they were asking, like, do you listen to any music on your 3-4 hour skis? And he's like, no, because it disassociates me from what I'm hearing and thinking. Mm-hmm. All I want to do is hear the snow under my feet and understand if I'm pushing too hard or pushing too low. I want to hear my breath. And to me, again, and this is coming from a guy who I used to always run with music, and now I haven't run with music I don't know how long. But I could even tell when I ran this last weekend, I was like listening to myself and listening to my strike and my foot, like going up hills, going down hills. Am I hitting too hard? I get it, because it can be exhausting, because you're always having to pay attention to an understanding on how you feel, and then making decisions where to slow down, or it's funny. Like I'm sure I'm not the only athlete that does this, but like I was on my run and I would say out loud, not in my head, but out loud, slow down, dude, just slow down. Mm-hmm. Because I could tell by listening to my foot strike and my breath and how I was feeling, and that I was getting hot because I overdressed a little bit, that I was like, you got to slow down, man, because you want to save this horror for the last two. Because I had this huge hill to go over to get back to the house. But again, like using that, just like listening to music. And again, I'm not saying that it's bad, but I'm saying that there's so many, technological ways to disassociate and become unpresent in what you're doing in every workout with, all these things for your indoor cycling entertainment and all these things for your indoor running entertainment, is that it's entertaining, right? It's not all about being mindful and aware, because you can't be totally mindful and aware of who you are and what you are in that moment if you're stuck staring at a screen. And it is I had this we took Hayden, this is like maybe totally off the wall, but we took Hayden to the aquarium yesterday, and yesterday afternoon, and I remember walking in there, and I remember how I love fishing when anything water anyway, but as we were walking around and kind of observing things, is I just got to think, and I was like, man, like the reason this is so relaxing for me is because this has to be one of like the few opportunities or types of opportunities we have now where things are 100% unscripted. They just are. It's not like these fish have a script they have to go to, or they have to worry about what people or think or look like. It's totally random. And I couldn't help but think of like how we train and how we think and how we like set these expectations and preset numbers before every single thing we do. And we've just become so disassociated with ourselves that we don't even really know who we are. We just guess. And then we throw out a number that we hope to be on race day, and we end up just swinging and whiffing over and over and over and over again. And even if you have the worst swing in the world and you get 200 at bats, you might hit one home run. It's like banking all your money that your swing is perfect on that one home run, versus making subtle changes on tweaking that swing to where you can get hits and get on base 110 times out of 200 and then make that change. But again, like all those probably random ass analogies is just to say that you have to be able to be in tune with yourself, and you have to, in order to do that on race day, you have to give yourself repetitive opportunities to do that and make decisions during training. Because if you don't know how to do them during training, you won't be able to do it on race day. You won't trust yourself. and you have to trust yourself. You can't just, again, going back to one of the very first things you said, is like athletes will bury themselves under the energy of expectation on race day, and they will throw everything to the wind. Like it's just funny. Like I find it fascinating how many people almost like brag that they blew up on the bike and they walked the run. It's like, oh, I just blew up again on the bike. I just bonked. You didn't bonk. A bonk to me is like just a really poor nutritional choice. You didn't bonk. You just let your ego drive the train, and you have no ability to restrain yourself. And so for the rest of your life, you're always going to be first. Not because you get there on the podium, because you're always going to be in your own way.
Man, it's funny how we are kind of on the same page a lot. I was thinking about that running without music yesterday because I had an hour run and I was kind of getting late in the daytime, and I kind of put my things together quick and forgot I run about every other time, it seems like, with music, and yesterday I just forgot it, and I was running and I'm like, well, something's missing. Oh wait, the music. Yeah. And I'm with you, man. I don't want to disparage running with music, because it definitely adds something to the experience for me. And
yeah.
But I think the reality is that it's one of those things that's very difficult to do. So like I've gone through streaks where I haven't used it, and you get into it, and I'm sure you're into this now because you do a lot of trail running and you don't run with music, where you can kind of almost create your own music and in your mind, and it's like an energy or something that kind of where you're breathing well and relaxed, and you're creating sort of like this abundant energy on your own. And there's something so powerful about that. I think that there's definitely an advantage to getting used to that, because once you get in race day, I mean, obviously you don't have music. So I think that there's something very difficult about running without it when you're not used to it. And I also think that there's something to be said for, like, okay, if you're getting on a trainer and you're getting ready to do a half Ironman or an Ironman where you got to ride 3 hours or 6 hours without music or out distraction. There's something about the idea that you're putting that movie on because you want to be distracted, because you're not really enjoying what's going on, or you haven't figured out how to enjoy the idea of just breathing and getting stronger and just using yourself as that energy vehicle. And that's what I think that happens a lot of times on these bike, when people cook the bike. It's for me, that's what I do. It's like, I just want to get this damn bike over because I hate it. You know what I mean? I want to get this thing over. So whatever that takes. And that's when you start forcing your energy levels to the way out of the box and start ruining the run. And I just, it's so fascinating to me because I know that we can do it, but it's just so difficult because we're so used to being distracted by things. Or, I mean, there's no question in my mind that running with music is like a PED, man. I mean, it definitely makes running easier. It's almost like fueling while you run versus using water. It's a different sport almost, because if you're just trying to get used to running 10, 15 miles without music, you have to have a totally different mindset, I think.
Here's the thing about, it's not music, it's about anything that takes away from you listening to yourself.
Well, yeah,
is that we,
or whatever.
Yeah, it's like you've been, and again, like, I get it. I would 100% get it, coming from a guy who used to do like every one of his runs on the treadmill up to like 2 hours and over with music the whole time and like no TV. I could just like zone out. Like, I've been there. And I've never been there on the bike per se, but the biggest thing is that we've become so addicted to having background music. Or like, I know a lot of people, I mean, even my wife is like this sometimes when she'll be doing stuff around the house and working hard, she has to have something on in the background. Just everybody likes background noise, whether it's music. I mean, I do it while I'm working. I put Pandora on, I listen to music. But while you're training, like, and this is why it's interesting to see like people have these epic freakouts online when they see that there's no music allowed on course. They're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through the day? I have to run with music. And again, like I can't express this enough. And I've learned this over and over and over here in the past few weeks, and I keep going back to the bike and then again on the run a little bit. But the hardest thing about trail running for me recently has been the duration I've been going, but also the fact that you don't get, it's like mountain biking. You don't get any moments off to just listen to background music. If the trail is even like semi-technical. I mean, you ran with me last week? Mm-hmm. You're always doing something or preparing for something, and your mind has to be present. It can't get like looking around at the trees and the the tulips and the different colored leaves, and it's just like you have to pay attention. And I found myself, like the first few longer ones I was doing, my legs were fine, my body was fine, but I was mentally fatigued from just having to pay attention that much. And like when you like focus at your computer screen or doing anything for a long time, you have to like kind of rub your eyes, like, well, okay, all right, I need to kind of like refocus. I was having to do that, and I can't help but think of the energy that people lose on race day when they do all of their training inside, staring at a screen without having to think. Right? You just have to do. And racing is about thinking. It's about reacting. It's about listening to yourself. And it's so many things, even with running up, people are like on the treadmill for every run, running on Zwift, and like not thinking. They're just like hanging out in a digital world where nothing can go wrong. And then you step outside your door and realize, oh man, I gotta figure out how to deal with the weather. I gotta figure out how to deal with the terrain. How I'm actually feeling today. Whoa, this is way too much. This is like overload. And that affects you. Whether you like it or not, it affects you. And again, to just assume that you can do the same in different environments is just false. It's another false positive, is thinking that you can sit on your trainer and chug out 200 watts for 3.5, 4 hours with nothing else to worry about but just putting out the numbers. And then you go outside and you have to worry about 2,500 other people in roads, in turns, in gearing, in racing, and think that extra mental and emotional work, which is also taking away energy, isn't going to affect your performance. You have to prepare for that. And again, like just going back to how you're running and riding and listening to yourself, like I'm not saying you can't do those things or shouldn't do those things, at times. I think there's a great benefit to doing it because, again, like it's all about gaining fitness, and that's how you gain fitness, and that's good. Again, I think a lot of people find their trust and their loyalty to music because it gets them out the door. And again, like the pool, and swimming, if it just gets you to the pool more, then I'm all for it. Whatever allows you to be consistent. But there are times when you need to take that away and remove that I would consider it a distraction, to listen to and to submerge yourself into real world distractions. And figure out how to dictate those and how you're feeling, and to pull back and then not pull back and then not be, because again, a lot of times music also, I've had athletes comment on this, like they'll go way too hard because they get swept up in the words or a beat or a music or whatever it is, a song, and they'll just burn themselves and they end up having a very poor workout. It takes you out of knowing who you are and how you're actually doing a lot of times.
Raising my hand right here. Well, I mean,
are you?
Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me for sure, man. So what you said is great. Is like, yeah, I mean, practice it without music or whatever, or without the distraction, or realize that it matters when it comes to your race day a little bit. Whether it's, if you're not used to riding outside, like you're saying, with the turns and the people and the situations and all the mental stuff, that whatever. If you're not used to that, realize that that's an energy suck. And it's going to matter a little bit. I mean, that comes back to like when you maybe go into your tri-calc seeking the truth that you're really capable of. That's something you may have to factor in there, whether it's 5%, take 5% off. I don't know what the number is. I'm just saying that I know for a fact that if I have music on, I think it makes running a little bit easier for me. So, I don't know, just, I guess. I mean, again, I think you're right. I mean, if it helps you get, and it definitely helps me get out to run sometimes, like, man, I do not feel like running, but I would love to listen to this music right now. It gets me out. There's some fitness to be gained.
Yeah, again, like there's Yeah, I'm just there's a time and place for everything, right? I'm just saying, like, there's, it's like taking practice tests. Like, you can study, you can have all the information you need to, but at some point you have to do something in an environment or in a circumstance that's going to best replicate what you're going to be asking yourself to do on race day, and then see how things go. And then again, if things are going well, you can go back and get back to what you were doing. But if not, and you realize that I just got mentally fatigued, then maybe think, all right, well, maybe instead of running 5 days a week with music, I need to run 4, or 3. Don't just take it. I'm not advocating for taking away music or these indoor entertainment things, because if it gets you to work out, then I'm all for it, right? But at some point, when you're looking to put all the pieces together and to perform really well, you at least need to know how things are going to. It's like, playing, inter squad games, for professional sports. Like, at some point you want to, like, at least get as close as you can to, like, a game time simulation as you can before actually doing it, mentally and emotionally. I'm not talking about physically. I'm not talking about doing a full distance race before you go. I'm just talking about when you're trying to put all the pieces together and seeing how your body and your mind is responding and knowing itself, because oftentimes one of the biggest things is athletes struggle with knowing themselves and detaching them, how they're really feeling, from a number they have to have. And that same level and commitment to detaching yourself from that will run you into the ground on race day. And it's exercising and exercise in judgment, really, and a practice in knowing yourself and being mindful of that, and doing that at least intermittently a couple of times a month to make sure and realize how things are going. And just listen to yourself. It's hard. I get it. Like, we live in a world where we don't have to listen to ourselves anymore. We can just distract ourselves. No one has to listen to themselves. They can just distract themselves and mindlessly look at millions of things every day that mean absolutely jack to who we are in our actual lives and what we're actually feeling. We can just distract and numb any kind of thought or feeling that we have through distraction. But if you want to race well, you have to know who you are and listen to that and not marry to it and do your best.
All right, my man.
There we go.
Crushing
Iron Podcast 328.
328.
We appreciate you listening. It's the holiday season, so I hope you all are enjoying it and spending time with family and friends. Don't overindulge at your holiday parties, but have fun. Refresh yourself. Get ready for a great year. And as always, we appreciate you listening and tuning in. If you haven't and you want to, swing by. Website is crushingiron.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, training, camps, you name it, it's there. Check it out. If you have any questions, you can email Mike directly, crushingiron@gmail.com, or if you have any questions for me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. It's been a blast. I appreciate it.
As always, man. Talk to you Thursday.